Hello, my friends. Welcome back to The Evolved Man. Today's guest is intelligent and humble. Graduating summa cum laude did not give her a big head, which we talk about in this episode. Michelle Brandenstein returns to discuss the power that your mindset has while getting and staying in shape, why your tribe matters, and how you can carefully curate a tribe of people who help you to become your best self. Why her trainer jumps on her back to tell her she did a good job after her set and sometimes during her set, and why you should be eating fermented foods. All this and much more. If you haven't checked out our first episode with Michelle, please do so by listening to episode 75. And now, on to the show. Welcome to The Evolved Man, where we are at war with the mediocrity of modern man. The Evolved Man is for men like you who are willing to be strong, open, and aggressive learners. Men who are not afraid to disrupt and change. It's time we ditch the current conventional idea that we devolve with age, that the dad bod is our destiny, and that the glory days are behind us. Your best isn't behind you, and I'm here to provide you with practical tools, a few tips and tricks, and everyday wisdom to help you evolve into your highest form. Strong, lean, smart, educated, and emotionally intelligent. Now, let's go to war. All right. Well, Michelle, welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Steve. It's so good to be back.
Yeah, great to have you. Thanks for coming in studio. I thought it would be kind of fun to start you off with a pop quiz. You're an education buff, right?
Yes.
What did the word summa cum laude mean?
Oh, that's when you have 4.0.
Okay, but
Wait,
yeah.
oh,
So
yeah.
you're super smart, right? But
Oh,
what do the
oh,
words mean?
oh, summa cum laude. No, that's a good question.
I had to look it up myself. So this is not me flexing in any way, shape,
uh,
or form. It means with highest honors. So
highest
yeah,
honors, yeah.
yeah, at a 4.0. So what does it feel like to walk into a room and know that you are smarter than probably like 99% of the
Oh.
people out there?
No, I mean, just in that subject. I feel everybody is smart in something, right? So everybody has a different skill set. I just
I
happen
just haven't found mine yet.
Oh,
So
stop. You're very, very smart, especially in the health and fitness industry, I feel like.
yeah. So when you walk into a room and you look around, do you just kind of say summa cum laude?
No, no, I don't even think about it, to be honest with you.
Don't you know who I am? I'm summa cum laude. Okay, so serious question for you though. Is Mortimer getting into better shape, or is he just trying to steal the show?
So you know what, Mortimer, he's actually my personal trainer.
Oh, he is. All
Yes.
right. And so when they talk about personal trainers barking at you,
Yes,
he's literally barking at you,
he
right?
is. He is. Yes, he's staring at me. He's staring me down. He's like, your form. He's looking at my form, and he's definitely barking at me. Like,
He's got some space issues though. I mean, I've never seen a personal trainer get up on top of the client, at least not in the gym. I've seen him jump on top of you a couple times.
yes, yep.
How do you deal with that with the workouts and Mortimer being around?
Well, I mean, that's his way of high-fiving me when he jumps on
Oh,
me.
okay.
It's high five.
He's proud. He's saying,
Yes,
"Hey, good job,
yep,
mom."
exactly.
I love that. Um, so for my studio guests, when they come into studio, I typically put a book next to them as a point of conversation. Have you seen this book before?
You know what? I have not, but I was actually, it's so funny that you bring this up because I was actually going to ask you after the podcast about this book.
Okay. Are you familiar with Dr. Kelly Starrett?
You know what? I am not. I
So
don't get it.
this is a newer book that he put out called Built to Move.
Uh-huh.
And I choose the books because it reminds me of something about my guest.
Uh-huh.
So I chose this book because Dr. Starrett is one of the most well-educated people when it comes to rehab in the health and fitness space.
Mm.
He is extremely smart, but he makes everything look very simple.
Yes.
And he is when he breaks it down. If you ever watch any of his videos,
you could not know anything about health and fitness, and you're going to know how to do some sort of smashing technique or flossing technique or positional release or whatever it is. And you don't need a PhD to do it,
Hmm.
even though he has one, right? So
Right.
he makes you feel like you're smart. And I
Hmm.
feel like that kind of resonates with how you are. You're very
Oh,
smart, and yet when you communicate with other people, you break it down into very simple terms.
yes. Yes, you have to.
So why is that so important for you? Why is it making it something that someone can understand? Why is that part of what you do?
I mean, you want to break it down into the simplest parts. It makes it easier for somebody to understand. And I feel like, I mean, you've heard of self-efficacy,
Right.
where somebody feels like they can do something. When
Yeah.
you make it too complicated, it kind of just goes out the window. But when you simplify it, people are like, okay, it kind of resonates
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that book is my gift to you for coming on to the podcast.
Oh,
So thank you for coming
thank you
on.
so
And
much, Steve. I'm
it's,
excited about this book.
yeah. So final serious question before we really get into it. Recently, my wife and I started watching the TV show Loudermilk on Netflix. Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't?
Mm.
Okay. Well, my question to you has to do with the star of the show. The star of the show is a man by the name of Ron Livingston. How do you know Ron?
Oh, I don't know Ron. I actually met him like when I was 22 years old,
Okay.
and this is when I lived in Los Angeles, but I just happened to be hanging out, well, with my friend who was friends with a friend of his. And
Gotcha.
so we like sat down and actually I met him and then he was actually having dinner with his like an investor in one of his movies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this was a long time ago.
So this is where the picture of you and LeBron Livingston comes from.
Yes.
I love that. So Michelle, you hear often from your clients that they don't have time to work out. That's a very common phrase, right? Men and women have used that excuse for decades. Why do people use that excuse?
Um, I mean, I feel like people get caught up in their day and maybe there is some validity to that, like where they feel like they don't have time to work out. I mean, they're working, they got a family, and then they come home, they're exhausted, and maybe I don't want to say it's an excuse, maybe it is an excuse, but I think the tip that I would give for somebody that says like I don't have the time to work out, and maybe they don't, right? We look at their day. Have you ever done like where you actually like it's kind of a self-awareness technique, like where you have a notebook and you say like from 7 to 8 a.m. I'm eating breakfast and
Yeah, so kind of like a schedule audit.
yeah, kind
Yeah.
of like a time journal.
Hmm.
So I tell clients that have that excuse, like let's do a time journal, let's do that for 3 days and see what you're really doing. And you'll see that like some of their time blocks is on like they're doing social media or
Right.
they're watching TV. So it's kind of like, well, instead of that, like, can you incorporate some sort of activity, like whether it's walking or, whatever, lifting weights or just anything that they enjoy, like some form of physical activity. And if they do are indeed like super jam packed, like, can you separate things? Like, can you do like 10 minutes of cardio here? Can you fit in 10 minutes of cardio 2 hours later? Can you fit in 15 minutes of weight training 2 hours later? Like kind of just chunking up their day if they really indeed do not have that time.
It's amazing what small inputs and small investments can make.
Hmm.
10 minutes.
Yes.
There are going to be some people who listen to this and say, no, that you can't get results with 10 minutes.
Hmm.
I've seen the opposite. I've seen that you can get significant results
Oh,
with
yeah.
small bites. What's your experience?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Small bites are huge. I mean, any form of movement is huge. And, just getting off the couch and going for a walk, walking your dog, you get that blood flow in your body,
Yeah.
get those muscles working. It makes a huge difference. I mean, your heart. I mean, again, like you can chunk it up too. Like you can do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes here. I mean, if you are indeed truly busy, like you can try to make that work. It's about intentionality, like making it a focus
Yeah.
and a priority.
I've got a friend of mine that was on the podcast recently, and one of the things she's a colleague too, and we've been playing around in the gym with helping her to achieve a goal that she set for herself. She was coming up on her 50th birthday,
Mhm.
and she said, I wonder if I could do a pull up by the time I get to my 50th birthday. And I wonder if I could do a pull up from by the time I get to my 50th birthday has now transformed into I wonder if I could do 10 pull ups by my 50th birthday
Mhm.
because this week she's sitting at 5.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And it's been really cool because part of what we've done is we just have broken up the chunks that she's needed to do
Mhm.
in order to develop the muscles to get her to the point where she can do multiple pull ups. And so as we broke down the movement patterns, we just said, okay, here are some areas currently where you're weak. So she trains and coaches people in person. I said, when you're waiting for a client, go over and do one set as hard as you can on this.
Mhm.
In between your next client, go do one set as hard as you can with this.
Mhm.
And so in a very short period of time, she's gone from not being able to do a pull up to now doing 5 pull ups. And she's well on her way to probably doing 10 by her birthday, if not more.
That's amazing.
Less than 10 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Chunked up a few times during the day. And she's going to be 50 years old.
That's incredible.
It blows in the face of everybody that says they don't have time.
Yep. It's so true.
What's another tip you give somebody if someone has limited time and they look at their schedule and it is jam packed, but they do have some space here or there? What are one or two suggestions that you would give them to get a small chunk of movement in?
I mean, obviously breaking, getting those chunks in throughout the day. Sometimes you have to be intentional. You might have to wake up a little bit earlier, to get to the gym. And it can be hard. I know like some people can do that for a couple of days and then it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to wake up early to go to the gym. But a lot of it is willpower and it is intentionality
Yeah.
to get that in. And like you said, like just any workout honestly is better than no workout, even if it's 10 minutes. Maybe you can only do 10 minutes.
Yeah. So the question isn't, should I work out? It's, what do I have time to work out?
Yes.
Right. You talk about intentionality. What does that mean to you?
It's making that effort, right? And I read this amazing book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. You a lot of so you have if you haven't read that book, it's about a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, right? So a fixed mindset is you encounter a task and you basically, I mean, if it's too hard, you're like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
You already make up your mind.
You've already made up your mind. A growth mindset person will look at that task and be like, well, I can't do that now, but maybe I can do that in the future. So what do I need to do to accomplish that task? So whether that's education or hiring a coach or whatever it is, they're focusing on achieving that goal, right? So with intentionality, it's the effort, right? Making that effort. So
Yeah.
that ties into the whole growth mindset.
So it's not even about the result. It's just about you're going to take some intentional action towards it.
Yes.
I love this quote by Carol DeWick where she said that the hallmark of success, or excuse me, the hallmark of successful people is that they are always stretching themselves to learn new things. So, how can learning help someone get into better shape and maintain a higher level of fitness?
Um, so I mean that's a huge and that's a beautiful quote because it really targets that growth mindset, right? I might come in and I might not know anything about weight training and I might not know anything about getting in shape or becoming fit or becoming healthier. Uh, but you have options. You can actually Google anything these days. Like
Right, right.
you can learn about different things. And it's also just getting in there, getting in the ring and just doing it. Sometimes it's like, like you just got to take that action, even if you don't want to, or if you want to learn something, you just got to do it and you kind of just figure it out.
Do you think it also is a matter of because we live in the social media age, how we're training the algorithm to feed us? I
Mhm.
mean, I look up like if you were to pull up my TikTok right now, it would basically be two things as the major things that would pop up, with maybe one or two things as a minor. You'd either be getting cooking videos or you would be getting health and fitness exercise videos.
Mhm.
There'd be some random funny, like dogs falling off of stuff or whatever, right? That I
Mhm.
just send to my wife randomly. And then there might be some random whatever else. I like style and cars. And so I may get some random things about watches or
Mhm.
whatever. But the rest of my feed is pretty much the things that I'm actually interested in,
Hmm.
making great food and moving.
Right.
How much do you think that that plays into our overall education and leaning towards or leaning away from a healthy life?
I mean, it's interesting, like the whole algorithm, it really targets what you're interested in, right?
Right.
So I, I'm a believer of like, surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like. So if you make friends that are interested in being active and being healthy, and even if you're like following them on Instagram and you're looking at their feeds, or targeting those kind of feeds or profiles, I feel like you're going to get more of that, like in that algorithm towards you, and maybe that might motivate you, to want to get more active, to get off the couch,
Yeah.
to get into better shape.
It seems like we have we have the social networks that we have in person, and then we have the social networks online, right? And what we're taking in online probably, if we want to live an integrous life, should match up with what we're taking in person too,
Right,
right?
right.
You've got a great network of very fit, very active women that you're connected to. You go hiking, you go snowboarding together. Talk about how that's impacted your overall life.
It's amazing. And it's funny because I actually end up attracting those people. I had to search for those people a long time ago,
Intentionally, sure.
and now I just attract them. And I find friends that are really into hiking, that are into weightlifting, that are into snowboarding.
Yeah.
I meet these women in classes or whatever it may be, just on the mountain or at the gym. You just become friends with these people. You have to be intentional too. Like you have to reach out to people like this as well.
And it does attract, right?
Yeah.
I think part of what's cool too is, well, like the other day, I had posted something about being up on the mountain. You responded back and said, "Oh, snowbird, I got to get out there. I've only been to yeah, what Solitude or Brighton this year."
Yes.
And it creates this interaction with like-minded people.
Yeah.
I'll do the same thing. I'll see
Mhm.
somebody out snowboarding. I know I've sent messages to you before of
Mhm.
like, "Hey, that looks awesome. How was the snow today?" Or I've got friends that when we're traveling and we're in Zion, that will say, "Man, we were just there. We were
Mhm.
just hiking." And so the online and in person, I think, is really cool because when you are intentional about building that tribe,
Mhm.
it it almost seems like it flows and supports and reinforces this lifestyle that you have intentionally chosen.
Yep.
What's your experience been?
Just like you, like again, I had to be intentional about it in the past before I got into fitness and becoming a personal trainer, which was over 10 years ago. It would just be, friends that I have that maybe they weren't active, but like, hey, let's do it together. Let's be a team. Let's go on walks every
Yeah.
day. Let's try to be active. So sometimes you're not attracting those type of people, but you have friends that might be interested in trying to get into shape, and you can get into shape together and motivate each other and become that tribe.
Yeah, you can become the tribe and the culture that you want.
Mhm.
A question for you. So you have a culinary background, right?
Mhm. I do.
Do you ever eat foods that your friends prepare and just wish that you could tactfully tell them how to make it better?
I mean, yes, but honestly, like I appreciate food and I appreciate the love. Like when my friends cook for me, I love it. Like, I mean, I have friends that are probably better cooks than me. I don't know, but yes.
And you've probably gotten very good at the napkin sneak, right?
Yes.
Just quietly putting it here, and then we go throw the napkin away later. Dr. DeWick has also referenced that you don't know your abilities until you make a full commitment to developing them. Full commitment takes a longer time. It seems like people who start a fitness journey think that they're going to look great, lose weight in 12 weeks, because that's
Mhm.
what fitness people tell them. And so then when they don't, they just stop.
Right.
Where do you see people stopping their fitness journey before they get the results?
That's a very good question. And um, like people can be motivated, right? And motivation is not I don't like to focus so much on motivation. It's a lot of it is discipline. Like you have to be disciplined. Motivation will get you maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. maybe a month.
Yeah. Well, I think statistically, what was this thing that I read? I'm sure you've read this, but it's about 2 weeks for people that write a resolution down
Mhm.
until they just completely forget about it.
Yes.
So yeah, probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. And I feel like part of that is people make it very difficult for themselves. Like they feel like it's all or nothing, right? That all or nothing mentality, like where, I'm going to get in shape this year and I'm just going to go balls to the wall. I'm going to like go to the gym for 2 hours. I'm going to just eat chicken and rice and vegetables. And that's all I'm going to do. And it's like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Like that is not an easy lifestyle,
I
right?
can't do that lifestyle.
No, neither can I. Like it's too
I hate that
difficult.
lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So extremely important if you're going to make goals like this, like you kind of need to challenge yourself a little bit, each week, like whatever it may be. But don't take on so much at once. I feel like that's where people fail and it's not sustainable, right? Like you got to find methods that are sustainable for you. And everybody's different. Everybody works differently, right?
Right.
For me
Right.
personally, like I love to micromanage myself and I have a lot of like I like structure and I have systems that I've created for myself in my life to keep me going and help me with my discipline and I guess motivation. But other people like they what motivates them is having fun,
Yeah.
trying to make
Yeah.
things fun, like it's different for everyone, but you got to find what works for you.
Yeah. See, like you, I'm a disciplined guy. I
Mhm.
like to have my systems in place. If you look at my wife, she's not that she's not disciplined, but she's fun driven.
Yes.
If the workout isn't fun, if she can't move and enjoy, like if you were to say, okay, Danielle, we're going to pay you $1,000 to just go work out by yourself, or we're going to pay you nothing to go dance in a
Mhm.
room with 50 other women, like done deal. She's dancing because
Uh-huh.
it's more fun.
Right.
And she wouldn't care about the thousand. She might. She may
Mhm.
listen to this and say, "Well, no, I want the $1,000." But the fun is the big motivation for her.
Right.
Now, I don't always care about the fun. I like the accomplishment. I like the achievement. So I think you're right. It's about finding what motivates you.
Right.
Where do you see people giving up too soon, though?
I feel like people give up too soon, again, like if they make it too difficult for themselves. And it's not I don't want to say it's not a priority because it is a priority in a lot of people's lives, but it's hard, right? It's uncomfortable and people don't like being uncomfortable, especially if they're starting and they've developed all these habits over a course of time, like a long, bad habits, right?
Mm.
Over a course of a long, whatever, say 3, 4, or 5, years. It's hard to implement those new habits that might be good, when they've been doing what they've been doing for so long. So, I mean, if you make it too difficult for yourself or you feel like you can't sustain this, then you're going to give up. I mean, nobody can sustain that. I mean, it takes a lot of willpower. And, willpower is a muscle. It's a muscle that you can, I mean, it's not a muscle, but it's like a muscle.
No, it is. Yeah.
Like you can train willpower, right? And you can train your discipline, but even the most disciplined person can only withstand so much.
Have you ever read the book Willpower?
I have.
Yeah. Because I think you're right. Like it is a muscle, right?
Mhm.
I've read added several things. I actually kind of went on a really long deep dive, probably like a 3 or 4 month deep dive onto this. When I started to read Willpower, I found a bunch of other Audible courses on it,
Mhm.
and it's a diminishable resource, or excuse me, a diminishing resource. It's something that when you focus on willpower, you what's the stat? Like 40% of the energy that we use is used by the brain, right?
Yes.
And so when we are just constantly trying to grit our teeth and willpower our way through something,
Mhm.
we're gonna run the course of our energy pretty
Yes.
quickly. So I know you're big on talking systems and habits for people
Yes.
and keeping it simple at the beginning. If somebody's having a difficult time getting started, where do you what's the first thing you tell them to do?
So, again, it's figuring out how that person works and what motivates them, right? So, like you and I are very structured. Like I love structure, I love systems. So, I mean, it's finding out how they work. So, but like for you and I, for example, like creating systems. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Habit Stacking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar. It's just like doing the same thing So creating these habits that you kind of stack on top of each other and doing the same thing, like in the morning, for example, like I have like my routine, like I do the same thing. Like I wake up.
What's one of your favorite habit stacks that you use? I'm curious.
So, well, I'm a mom, so like my daughters are, are incorporated in that. But it's, I wake up, I get a coffee with my husband. We do like a quiet time, like we
Mhm.
talk. That's kind of nice. And then we get home, we get the girls up, we get them ready to go, get them to school, and then I come home. I make my smoothie, get my water filled, and then I'm to the gym. I'm working out.
Okay.
So, and then, after that, then I have my own other habit stackings, like where I get into my business type stuff, like with work. But that helps me get going, like at least to get to the workout, right? So I have like a number of steps that gets me to my workout. And then even my workout, I have broken down into a system.
So it's like one thing leads to the next
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
And by doing the one thing, it leads to the next thing. The connection with your husband, the coffee with him, that leads to the kids, then it leads to your time. So it's almost like there's this nice little flow.
Yes.
By doing that, have you removed the friction? Have you removed the resistance?
Yes. It makes it so much easier because I just know what to expect. I've like trained my brain to know what is next. And it's not hard. It's not like an obstacle that I have to keep or hurdles that I have to keep jumping over.
Yeah. I've met your husband, and I think that I would feel the same way because, like, he's a great looking guy that's very
Oh,
charismatic. And
thank
so,
you.
if I could sit and have coffee with him in the morning, I'd probably feel, well, I don't know. I'd either would feel great about myself, or I would say, oh man, I need to be a better person to be just like him. So, these habit stacks help us to remove the resistance.
Hmm.
Habit stacking essentially is just what's the habit that you're currently doing, and then how do you stack it with something else that's going to move you in the right direction. Now, one of my favorite habit stacks, I don't use this anymore, but I did when I worked at a company where I had to, like about a 45-minute commute. I knew I wanted to eat healthy. And I knew that, with my longer commute, that was taking a significant amount of time. It's about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of my day
Hmm.
in the commute, depending on traffic. So I said, well, I shower every day. I pack my stuff up every day. And so how can I do that thing and then load in my healthy meals?
Hmm.
And so I created a habit stack where as I was prepping, instead of taking a shower, I would draw a bath. While
Hmm.
the bath was drawn, that's when I would start my prep for my food.
Hmm.
And by the time the bath was finished, which was about, I think, 2 minutes and 35 seconds,
Hmm.
literally, I had to time it to see if I could fit these things in. I could have my steak and eggs cooked and in the jar, ready to go,
Hmm.
so that when I pack up and I go, I'm done.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of effort for me to go take a bath versus a shower.
Right.
But it was that small shift that allowed me to stack into these other habits.
Hmm.
When I looked at the overall time, it didn't take me any more time. I didn't have to wake up any earlier.
Yep.
I just shifted something and then stacked my habit of prepping my food with it.
Hmm.
You talk about motivation and how people's initial piece to the habit stack has to match up. For you and I, we like systems. We're very organized. We're very detailed. Let's say somebody's listening to this particular episode that is more fun motivated.
Hmm.
What's a good starting point for them?
I mean, I think the habit stacking can work for somebody that is more fun motivated. If you're trying to find, I feel like somebody that's more fun motivated, like your wife likes to dance, she likes
Right.
classes.
Mhm.
I feel like somebody that's more fun motivated is loves relationships and friendships.
Yeah.
So I feel like somebody like that, maybe having a friendship or an accountability partner might help them to, you know, whatever, get on this health and fitness journey or whatever it might be.
Yeah. That's a great point because the relationship, like for me, I don't talk about my health and fitness with very many people. Like
Yeah.
I don't, if I hit a new PR, I may tell someone, I may tell my wife, like, or I may just like write it in my journal. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't wander around and tell a million people every time I hit something new. But not that that's bad. I think other people are relationally driven or more socially connected in that way. So I
Mhm.
think that's a great way to look at it.
Mhm.
What's another habit stack that you found to be particularly successful for you?
Um, at least like with business. So like, I have my workout and then I'll have my shower and I get, have my another cup of coffee. I'll have my afternoon cup, get on my desk or, get to my desk, turn my computer on. And I like to put CNBC on.
Oh, cool.
I don't know,
Okay.
just like background noise.
Get a little Jim Cramer going.
Yeah. But it gets me like in that business mindset.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know, or
that's
whatever.
funny you say that. I'm the
It could
same
be,
way.
it could be news, like whatever, news, like just something like that
Yeah.
kind of gets my mind, focused.
Yeah.
And then, I'll check my website. I'll check. So I use a platform called Trainerize. So like I have my like a fitness app on there, but like I use that as a platform to communicate with clients. So just it's very simple. Like the habit stacking is simple and it's kind of like maybe seems like a no brainer, but just doing those same things over and over and over again every day, I feel like it helps. And like you said, it takes the brain power out, the resistance out.
Yeah, you're using something that I've always called phase shifting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the technical term is, but my term's always been phase shifting. So when you go from one task to the next, you kind of shift into a different phase.
Yes.
And so you're turning on CNBC. I'm laughing because I do the same thing. I'll pull up the Wall Street Journal when it's time to move into business,
Yes.
or I'll pull up CNBC and I'll do that, and it makes me feel very businessy.
Yes. It gets
So
you
then
in the
at that
mood.
point, I'm in the mood, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like we think about getting in the mood. We're going to light some candles. We're going to have a little
Right.
romantic dinner here.
Right.
All right,
Right.
we're in the mood. But we have to get in the mood for some of the other things that we do in life,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
If somebody isn't working out on a regular basis, what's your best in the mood recommendations for them?
Honestly, I love music. I feel like music can really get you in the mood. Like
There's nothing like a great
yeah,
playlist, right?
just finding that playlist of songs that just get you pumped.
Mm.
I think that can get you in the mood for working out.
Okay,
Or
so
even-
my ADHD is going to kick in. What are some of your best songs for you? I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole for a second.
for fitness or
For fitness, yeah.
fitness? Oh, I don't know. You're gonna laugh at me.
I'm going to guess that you go back and forth between classical music and hardcore rock and roll.
Well, I like classical music for cleaning and
Okay.
soft rock
All right.
for cleaning. Like
Okay.
if I want to get a playlist to get me motivated to
Got a
clean.
little Barry Manilow going on
Yes.
in the background. Okay. I got you.
For working out, I don't know. I'll put on like top hits, like pop. I don't know.
Okay.
I like, dance or techno music or like hip hop will get me going.
So you're a raver while you're working out.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Anything that makes me want to dance.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's let's talk a little bit more about this. So a great playlist is a good way for people to get started and get in the mood to work
Mhm.
out. What are some other things that they can do? Taken away from like your CNBC mode of getting in business, what can someone do to phase shift into it's time for me to work out?
So I always recommend, like, especially when you're hitting goals, buying a new gym outfit.
Yeah.
I feel like women, especially if you love shopping, like having a cute gym outfit gets you in the mood to work out.
Yep.
The music, and then, just having that habit stack, I feel like is really helpful, or having that accountability partner, having that friend, to go to the gym with or hike with or whatever it may be.
I think that the outfit thing is really underappreciated in my mind,
Hmm.
because when you feel good about something, you will then go do something that makes you feel even better, right?
Hmm.
So even if it's buying a new pair of shoes, or finding a tank top or a t-shirt that fits you better,
Hmm.
like I was talking to a client the other day, and he's made some amazing changes. And I said, okay, so talk to me about, what do you wear when you go into the gym? Oh, an old t-shirt. And like, dude, look at your arms.
Hmm.
Are you wearing a t-shirt that just swallows your arms up? I don't know. I guess I just don't think about it. Well, what if you actually got something that fit you? So he shifted over to shirts that actually fit around his arms. Like, wow, that does make a big shift to my psyche. Yeah. So dress in a way that shows love, shows respect, but also gets you in the mood,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Because if you look good, you're going to go do other things to look good.
Hmm. And it motivates you,
Right.
to want to continue to want to look better or just maintain that or whatever it may be.
Yeah. It's almost like we're borrowing a little bit of the feel good
Mhm.
from the clothing, so that we can then go do other things to make us feel good,
Right.
right? All right. So we got great music. We got a new outfit. What else?
The friends.
The friends.
Yeah,
We got the
having it the
friends.
account or even your husband or your
Yep.
spouse if they're into they want to get into better shape. I think having a team,
Yeah.
partner, you know. Um I feel like hitting those goals or like maybe going in and achieving the new PR.
Yeah.
Um the progressive overload. So when you go into the gym to get better, you want to like slightly challenge yourself, right? Each time. So
Yeah.
I think when you achieve that, I think that's motivating, like to see that you're getting stronger or you can actually see results. That's what I like about like weight training is you can actually see the results, like as you,
Right.
I mean, not just in your body, but like just in your performance. You can see that, wow, I'm instead of 20 pounds, I'm doing 25 pounds this week
Yeah.
for the same amount of reps.
Do you know who Louis Simmons is or was? He passed away
Yes.
recently. Yeah. So Louis Simmons, for our listeners who don't know, Louis Simmons was he started West Side Barbell in
Mhm.
Ohio, and I he got on my radar over 2 decades ago uh, because he was the first guy that was really using chains in strength workouts.
Mhm.
And so, he would throw chains on the side of the barbell, he'd squat down. And so, when you're at the bottom, you're lifting less weight. When you're at the top, you're lifting more weight, right?
Mhm.
So, this accommodating resistance concept, Louis was really the one that in America pioneered that.
Mhm.
Russians were using it, Germans were using it, the Chinese were using it. Some of the more dominant strength countries were using it, but Louis was the guy that said, "Hey, let's start using this here." So Louis developed a system called the conjugate system, and they're part of that whole process as I've studied it over the years is that they try to PR, they try to hit a high point almost every workout. And for some people that hear that, they're like, "There's no way you can continue to PR." Well, but what they're doing is they're hitting multiple exercises per week. And so they're not trying to hit the same exercise and a PR for that exercise every single week. So, for instance, I'm not trying to bench press and hit a new PR for bench press every week.
Mhm.
That's not sustainable.
Right.
But what the conjugate system that they put together did was it said, okay, we've got about 50, 60, 70 exercises that we rotate through. Pick one of those each week that you're going to hit something new. And when I read that, I thought, what a novel concept. What if we did that just once a week at least,
Mhm.
where you had one of the things that you were doing where you did more?
Mhm.
Last week I did 15 push-ups. This week I did 16.
Mhm.
Next week could I do 17?
Mhm.
And then I give up my push-up goal for a couple of weeks and I go to my squats. And could I do 5 more pounds on my squats? Could I do and just rotating through? So it's this constant process of
Mhm.
winning and doing a little bit better across 50, 60, 70 different exercises.
Mhm.
What's your take on it?
I mean, I love that, and it made me it makes me think of this parable. Maybe you've heard of that parable, where this guy, he has a calf, and every day he picks up the calf
Oh yeah,
until it
Milo.
becomes a cow.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he's picking up the cow.
Yeah, I've got the book in the other room. So Milo of Croton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as he was actually, from what we understand, he was a real person.
Mhm.
The legend of it is that he was a descendant of Hercules.
Mhm.
But yeah, he would pick up and put the calf on his back every day until it became a cow, and then he became world, renowned and was the best wrestler of
Mhm.
history. And that just it's a powerful lesson
Yeah.
that a small impact, or excuse me, a small intentional input, as you've called it, can make such a big difference over time.
Yes.
Any other tips for people for getting themselves in the mood for exercise?
So the systems, I feel like the habit stacking. So we talked about the outfits. I mean, like again, sometimes it takes pulling out that willpower and just getting into the gym. And maybe you need a system in the gym. And
Yeah.
I feel like knowing what you're doing in the gym is also helpful. So a lot of people go in the gym and they get intimidated because they don't know what to do. And that makes them give up. They
Yeah.
might go in, they might do some bicep curls, and they might do some tricep pull downs, and they're like, I don't really know what to do next.
Mhm.
So I feel like education is also extremely important. Hiring a coach is extremely important. Actually, last year um I was learning how to snowboard.
I'm
So
glad you brought that up. It's actually one of my questions. So I was going to ask you to time travel with me for a
yes,
second. So let's go there. So if we went back 2 years ago, how good of a snowboarder were you?
I didn't know how to snowboard
So a year ago, where were you?
beginning.
Where are you at now?
I'm doing blacks, I'm doing moguls. I mean, I feel like I'm doing it. And then also that's the personal trainer in me. Like I have to be doing things with great form.
Yeah, right. It's got to
But
look good.
yes, but I mean, and that can tie in with the mindset book because it's a growth mindset. When I was last year, like when I did that lesson, actually it was yeah, the year before in March. It was like the last day of the season. And I did like a snowboarding lesson and it was the worst. I felt so bad for the snowboard instructor and I was probably his worst client.
Did he give you a blue ribbon for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was so frustrated with me.
You've
I was
graduated summa cum laude and being my worst client.
exactly, exactly. And I just that after that lesson, I wanted to cry. I was like, that was so embarrassing because like I expect better from myself, but it's like, you know what? I'm gonna get good at this. And that motivated me, that pushed me, and the following season last year, I started from scratch, and I could stand on my board, but I was like, I couldn't really maneuver. I was, hesitant. I'd fall on my butt a lot. I got hurt a lot. But I was just really determined, and this is the growth mindset. 'Cause I could have been like had the fixed mindset and been like, you know what, I can't do this. Like this is ridiculous. Like I'm not going to achieve this.
Mhm.
I can't. It's too hard. But I decided to have that growth mindset and just continue and continue. Every time like I'd go on the slope, I'd be like, you know what, I just want to get a little bit better at something, whatever. Like feel like I just accomplished something a little bit better. And every time I went, I did get a little bit better and I ended up hiring a coach. I hired not a ski coach, a snowboarding coach, to kind of help me with like the S turns, like getting on my toe side.
Right.
And so then I was getting on my toe side. So I'd practice the toe side every time I go in. And then I did the women's workshop at Brighton. And I feel like that really leveled me up. And then I did it again because I wanted to really get the form down where like I felt like I was snowboarding with proper form.
Yeah.
I feel like once you're doing things with proper form, then everything comes easy and it's fast.
It becomes well, two things. So it's easier when you hire a coach, and I want to touch on that. The second thing is you just said Brighton like you've lived here your whole life. So congratulations, because I know you haven't. Um, that so you've picked up the lingo. You now speak like a Utahn. Um, Hiring a coach is not just a shortcut to success, but in my opinion, it's what we really should be doing.
Yes.
Trial and error will always happen. We will always fail
Right.
along the path. Whether you have a coach or not, you're going to run into challenges.
Mm-hmm.
The question I always ask myself, and I will challenge my clients or potential clients at times, is why would you try and fail for 10 years? If somebody could just take those 10 years, condense it down and say, let's get you going, and you can learn how to do this and skip the line, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, to get the results in significantly less time.
Yes.
Talk about how hiring a coach had a profound impact on your ability to learn to snowboard in a faster timeline.
Because they're teaching you like when things you don't know and like they see you, they're seeing your form, they're seeing like what you're doing wrong and they're giving you tips. I feel like a coach is just so powerful. I mean, not just in snowboarding, but in other aspects of life. If you really want to level up faster, I would invest in a coach in whatever area that you're interested in leveling up in. It doesn't matter. Like if you, even with health and fitness, if you're just starting out with training, or even if you have been doing it for like I've hired coaches and I'm a coach. I'm a personal trainer. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Sometimes I like to pick brains. Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are they doing? And I want to see what they're doing and see if it works for me, if it like fits into my life. And I've learned a lot just hiring coaches, even in my same industry.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've spent I don't know how much money, tens of thousands of dollars in coaching over the years. Still, I'm almost 25 years into this, and I still have coaches that I will hire from time to time to help me bounce ideas off of.
Mm-hmm.
I love having conversations with colleagues, but every once in a while, I'm like, I need a little more focus. So I'm going to pay you to coach me on this particular aspect. I have this one goal. it seems like the people who are the most successful are the ones that are the most open to coaching,
Yes.
whereas those who are not successful are less open to the coaching. How does that play into this concept of growth versus fixed mindset?
So fixed mindset, again, like you're just like, you're going to give up. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Or you might think that you know it all and nobody knows better than you. That's also kind of a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we can all grow, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are, you can always grow in something, right? And I feel like coaching and education, like it opens those doors for you. Like you learn things quicker. Or if you want more opportunity, like you can build those skill sets through education and knowledge and learning from others.
hmm We, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, and because it goes against what I think a lot of people believe. There's an idea, especially in America, with the American dream that you can create whatever you want. That aspect of it, I agree with 100%. The aspect that gets sold to us about this idea of the American dream is that you can go from rags to riches, and that that's the most awesome way to do it. So take the thing that you're horrible at and then do that, right? So Dweck's research showed that everybody can get better.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you take what she showed, you put that with some of the research by the folks who wrote the book Strengths Finder,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, okay, there are some things that you can do in the areas where you're naturally have an affinity, and you can improve those. Then what happens is you've moved the fulcrum in
Mm-hmm.
life, and so there's an old movie. Did you ever watch the movie Rudy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that movie.
So a lot of people love Rudy because it's a really cool story. It's heartwarming. Everybody loves Sean Astin and how he did that. But to me, Rudy's also kind of a silly movie because it's like, why would you work that hard to just go play for a few minutes? Like,
Right.
I get it, but maybe he would have been smarter being the person that did something else. Maybe he was
Mm-hmm.
really intelligent in math, or maybe whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he were to lean into some things that he was actually really good at, put the same amount of hard work and effort into those, then could he have done something that was even more impactful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what the balance is with people relative to their success and how their natural affinity towards something goes.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned earlier, when people get started, you kind of want to know where are they coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would they lean towards? And then lean into this concept of the growth mindset. I mean, I don't think anybody that knows me is shocked and surprised that I've never played in the NBA or that I've never stood on the Mr. Olympia stage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how do we create a balance between the things that we might have a natural affinity towards, but also leaning into the growth mindset of I can improve.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm a firm believer in what Carol said that everybody can improve. But
Yeah.
but then you got the anomalies, like you got the NBA player. I mean, yes, like we're not all going to be NBA players. We're not
Right.
going to have that talent. We're not going to be, have that height or whatever.
And she
But
does talk about that in the book, right? To be fair, I mean, some
yes,
people criticized her work and said, well, it's all about, planting the seed of lack of hope or hope that should never be there. But she does talk about it. She's like, not everybody's going to be the NBA player.
right,
Can you get better at basketball? Yeah. I mean, if you're really bad and you practice, you're going to get better. Are you going
right,
to make it into the NBA? Probably not.
right. So yeah, you have those anomalies that, we maybe like maybe you never knew you had that talent. Like maybe
Right.
you're amazing at basketball and maybe you could play for the NBA. But most of us know, I think we can get better. Yes. And I think that's motivating. And I like that you brought up that Strengths Finder book because we all have our own strengths. And I feel like with this growth mindset, if you do discover your superpowers, your strengths, building on those, or you can focus on, improving your weaknesses. So, yeah, I like that you brought up that book, The Strengths Finder, because we all have different strengths, especially if you take that quiz, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. It takes like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then you can find out what you are strong in and what you might be weaker in.
Mm.
really focusing on building those strengths, but you can also work on improving those strengths. But that's also growth mindset, because you can have the fixed mindset of your weaknesses and be like, I'm never going to get better at this, which will stunt your growth as a person, and your skill set.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing to understand and put it into context, right? Context is king. Yes, we can improve in just about anything. And we're also going to improve in the things that we're probably naturally have an affinity towards as well,
Right.
right? So I loved playing basketball when I was a kid, but I will never play in the NBA. I
Mhm.
think that much is clear. Let's talk motivation. So more often than not, the crux for people isn't knowing that they should move a little bit more and eat a little bit different. It's getting the drive to get going and stay with it. When people start, let's say that someone has already started a program and then they lose the motivation. What causes the demotivation?
I think what causes the demotivation, I mean, it can be a number of factors, but probably the main one is that it's uncomfortable and it's not fun and it's not enjoyable. They don't have that self-efficacy for it.
Okay.
That it feels too hard to do. Or maybe they feel like they don't have enough time and they can't fit it in their day, or they get distracted with something else and then it just um, doesn't happen.
How do you, let's say that someone has started a workout program. Got a client, they start a workout program, they're 2 weeks in, they're 4 weeks in, and they say, Michelle, I haven't lost my weight yet.
Mhm.
And they become demotivated. What's your response?
Well, I don't like to focus so much on weight. So is this like no progress at all? Like no, like even body fat,
Even in,
nothing.
well, in their mind, right? I look in the mirror, I'm the same. The scale hasn't changed. I'm not making any changes.
I would probably ask them, like, are you sure you're not making any changes? Like, have you gotten your blood work done? Have we checked your body fat? Have we checked your measurements? And usually, I mean, that's something that I do with clients on a weekly basis is we will take measurements, we will take body fat. Because weight, it's like a number of different factors, right? Like you could be retaining water,
Yep.
and that fluctuates. So taking body fat is knowing like how much fat have you lost? Like, you might be the same weight, but maybe you're holding on to a pound of water, but you actually lost a pound of fat as well. And then measurements will show that.
Yeah. There's a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset piece to this as well,
Yes.
from my
Yes.
perspective,
Yes.
right? We I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but the name of the author, but the name of the book is Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And the author of that book talks about how much of life we go through it, we don't actually see what's in front of us.
Mhm.
We imagine it. And so, like, for instance, if I said, hey, draw a picture of a horse, 9 out of 10 people would draw something that would be a representation out of a horse, right?
Right.
It'd be kind of bad, maybe really bad, depending on the
Mhm.
person. But it wouldn't be the horse that might even be standing in front of them, because they don't have the ability to see the nuances of how the horse, where the mane falls, what the
Mhm.
shadow is right underneath the nose. And so we go through life and we get a fixed mindset on what we see in the mirror, what we see on the scale. And we tell ourselves we're not changing, but that might not be the case. And it sounds like part of how you help people to stay motivated is by peeling the onion layer back a little bit more and asking more questions.
Mhm.
Why is weight not the only thing that people should track?
Because weight is so fickle, right? Like it could, again, like water retention plays a big role in that. And that could be caused by hormones. It can be caused by stress, inflammation. It can be caused by eating too much fiber the day before or eating too many like maybe too much sugar. I don't know, the day before. So it's a factor of, weight. Water retention is a factor of so many different things. And so people can get really discouraged when they step on the scale and that's the only thing they focus on. Like they're not focusing on, are you getting stronger? Is your blood work getting better? Are your measurements going down? Is your waist getting smaller? Do your clothes fit better? Do you feel like you look better in the mirror? Like I focus on other things like compliments. Are you getting compliments from your friends or people at work?
I never get compliments from people. So I would fail in this program. So I think it's important though to have the variety in there. I've said for a long time I think weight is weaponized.
Yes.
You know, and weight is not for the lay individual.
Mhm.
It's for the professional. The professional is the one that should look at what your weight is and
Right.
then use that as a tool to help you to achieve results. You shouldn't be tracking your weight just
Mhm.
by itself, from my perspective,
Mhm.
unless you really know what you're doing.
Right.
That's like trying to tear your car apart and fix all of the computer systems within your car. If you don't have the right tools and materials to fix the computer system, you shouldn't even be touching it, from my perspective.
Mhm.
What are some of the responses when you ask those questions? I'm curious how your clients respond to that.
Um, they might be like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." Like especially with women, I work with a lot of women clients. So hormones play a huge role in water fluctuation. So
Mhm.
like when you're ovulating, you might be up like 4 or 5 pounds. When you're right before your menstrual cycle, you'll be up. Sometimes women are up after their menstrual cycle. So it's kind of when you work with the client, you're kind of learning about their body and like taking those measurements. And then when I talk to them, I'm like, "Hey, don't you remember like you gained 4 or 5 pounds like right before ovulation?" So we track those, and I pay very very close attention to that person's body, and then I can kind of get a sense of like what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's also good because I feel like when women are like, "Oh, it's not about weight," they start to have like a healthier relationship with themselves, their bodies, and even like with food. That's another thing that I try to work on with clients is having that healthy relationship, like not being so restrictive and having a sustainable lifestyle.
You ever had somebody in your life? I mean, like for me, I'm thinking of a teacher that I had in, I don't remember, the fourth or fifth grade, where you never knew which person you were going to get.
Mhm.
You'd walk into class one day and she would just lose her mind.
Mhm.
And then she would leave for 5 or 10 minutes and come back and she's like, "Hello, class." I'm like, what do you do when you are out of the classroom?
Right.
And why do we have to dance around every day to determine what mood you're going to be in?
Mhm.
That up and down. You ever had somebody like that in your life?
Yes.
They're not very fun to be with,
No.
right? Weight is like that.
Yes.
Weight is that person, especially in women, because there are so many factors that play into your weight. What a lot of people don't even understand is the outside barometric pressure
Yes.
can change your internal barometric pressure
Mhm.
and the amount of fluid that you're going to hold inside in your
Mhm.
joints. Um, we went to the hospital one time because my wife thought she was in labor. And the doctor said, no, the barometric pressure changed and it makes you feel like that because of the pressure inside of your stomach.
Mhm.
But you're not in labor. You still probably got another 2, 3 weeks. I was like, that's a thing? Like I knew it was a thing with the joints and everything
Mhm.
else. I didn't even know that was a thing with,
Oh yeah.
right? But
That's something that I've been reading about the barometric pressure. Like it can affect your mood. Like it can
right.
affect different things. Yeah.
Yeah, the pressure that we have inside of our skull, the pressure that we have internally, like we are
Mhm.
pressurized human beings
Yes.
inside, right?
Mhm.
And so that can affect weight overall. And so
Mhm.
weight is just a horrible way to track.
Yes.
Let's say that somebody has started a weight loss or a fitness journey and they've gone a couple of weeks in, they've lost some motivation. They're not a client of yours, so they're not having you or somebody else
Mhm.
ask them the relevant questions. What are some questions that they could ask themselves, or what's something that they can do to remotivate and get going again?
I think tracking progress is very important. Like having that data in front of you and seeing that yes, I am making progress even though my weight is not going down.
Right.
So taking those measurements, I feel like taking measurements weekly.
Mhm.
And if you're able to take your body fat, I think being able to take that weekly or biweekly is important. And then photos,
Okay.
taking photos is important. And I think not being so hard on yourself too. I feel like we're like all so hard on ourselves. Like just kind of looking at it like as if you're just observing somebody else's body. Like if you're looking at photos, like seeing those gradual changes because they will be gradual. But like if you were to compare this month, 3 months from now, like you'll see big changes or bigger changes.
Yeah. There's the concept of integrity. I've been thought about a lot lately. I mean, it's always been something that has kind of flowed into my life of what does it mean to be an integrous person, right? I don't know that a lot of us live a sense of integrity when it comes to how we treat ourselves versus how we treat other people. It's like we can be very kind, very loving, very supportive to other people, but we are complete jerks to
Oh
ourselves.
yeah. Yes, we're very, very hard on ourselves. And there's a book that I read, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about self-compassion.
Mm,
And actually, people that showed themselves self-compassion were more successful than those that did not and were too hard on themselves.
yeah, there's we tend to have double standards, don't we? Why do we do that?
I think we're just maybe it's society, like we have to be perfect, and especially now with social media, we start to compare ourselves to others.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Now you're busy, right? I mean, you stay super busy. You're married. You got 2 kids. Is
Yes,
that
2
right?
kids.
So life's pretty busy, but you also make health and fitness a priority. Talk a little bit more outside of the habit stack that we talked at the very beginning. What are some other things that you do to make sure that you prioritize health and fitness in your life?
Well, one of the biggest motivations for me in making sure I have this in my life, so I suffer from general anxiety disorder,
Mm,
and it helps me to feel sane and like I can go through my day without having this strong anxiety.
yeah. Okay.
And so that motivates me. And then, and again, it's different for everybody, right? Like they're like tying it into your identity and your values, the health and fitness and like why you would want to do it. And I feel like also now, like, I'm very focused in longevity.
Mm,
And when I get older, I want to be that grandma that's deadlifting
yeah.
and strong and,
Yeah.
not, I don't want to ever be in a wheelchair. I want to always be active. I want to be hiking on the mountain at 80, 90 years old.
Yeah. It's a pretty inspiring thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like how you talk about that. Talk a little bit more about with general anxiety disorder. How does exercise affect that?
It's exercise is so important if you suffer from anxiety or from depression. It releases dopamine.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know, there's just so many things that it just calms you, right? When you're exercising. And I mean, I definitely need that as a busy mom and, wife. And, I have a daughter that has ADHD
Mm.
and that can get challenging. So exercise is kind of like my saving grace.
Yeah, see, I got diagnosed with ADHD later in life.
Hmm.
Looking back at life, I can like all the dots just make a ton of sense. Like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, okay,
Hmm.
that's why I sucked in school. That's why I was. But one of the things that I've played with over the past few years is to ask the question: How does exercise? How does this particular food? How does this level of body fat? How does this level of flexibility? How do these things affect the ADHD? What makes it worse and what enhances it so that it becomes a superpower?
Hmm.
I think that's an important starting point
Yes.
for someone to know thyself, right?
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Um, how do you? I'm curious with clients that you have. How do you utilize exercise and food as medicine, so to speak,
Hmm.
to help them with other challenges that they're having? So if somebody else has anxiety disorder or ADHD or they struggle from depression, how are you using exercise, food, and overall general health and fitness as the pure medicine for them?
Well, I mean, you and I know that it makes you feel so much better,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I mean, how I came into fitness was, after the birth of my second daughter, I had postpartum OCD and depression, and it was very debilitating. I couldn't even get out of bed, and I ended up seeing a counselor for this, and one of his recommendations was to exercise, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, I was thinking like him, I'm just maybe I'll consider that, but
Which is gotta like sound horrible for what you're doing,
right,
right? You're like,
right,
you want me to go into a place where people sweat?
yes.
No.
So, I mean, I ended up taking him up on that offer. I'm like, okay, I will do it. And he held me accountable. And it ended up being my saving grace. I felt so much better. My baby weight came off, and I was inspiring other women in the gym. and I actually found my crew.
Mm.
They were, they were also starting out with their fitness journeys. And yeah, it just kind of propelled from there. And that's when I made this my career.
I want you to talk for just a second about vulnerability. One of the things I've observed about you as we've gotten to know each other is you have this beautiful vulnerability where you talk about life, you talk about the challenges, you talk about um, what it's like to be a mom, to try to stay fit, to do all of these different things. But you do it in a way where it's very beautifully vulnerable, but it's also very realistic, right? You're not on social media jumping up and down and saying, I have this. You just do it in like this nice, calm way. It's like, yeah, I have general anxiety disorder. Yeah, I dealt with, postpartum. Um, how has the vulnerability helped you personally? But then also, how has it helped you with clients?
It helps me personally, because I'm always like looking to grow, right? I want to grow, and I'm not perfect, right? And there's so many things that I can grow in, and that also keeps me humble.
Mm.
And again, that also ties in that growth mindset,
Right.
that to be a better person, whatever it may be. And with clients, it's just you're relatable, right? Because nobody has a perfect life. We all have something in our lives, everybody that is, like a thorn in our side,
Right. Right.
and we don't know, right, what people are struggling with, but I feel like everybody has a thorn, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's funny you talk about the relatability piece. I had I'm still getting over. I feel great. I'm obviously not contagious, but we are doing this exercise or this podcast a week later because I caught this head cold, and I remember communicating to one of my clients because he picked up on the change in voice, and he said, "This might sound insensitive, but I'm glad to hear you're sick."
What?
And I laughed. He goes, I don't mean it in that way. He goes, I just mean it in the sense that I'm glad you're human
Right.
because I just think of you as somebody who's healthy all the time. I'm like, oh, we're all human. We get
Yeah.
sick. Now,
Oh, definitely.
I may not hang on to it as much as I did 10 years ago or 20
Mhm.
years ago. I may recover quicker than what I used to, but yeah, we're all human.
Yeah, we are. At the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah. Talk about what's your theory on kindness?
Kindness. I mean, so I'm a spiritual person, right? I would say I'm a Christian,
Mhm.
and I feel like a lot of that comes from that source.
Yeah.
And I mean, kindness is just, you know, loving people, being relatable, um, being vulnerable, because yes, we are all human. Like nobody's perfect. Even when you go on social media and you're comparing yourself to other people, like those people also have things going on in their lives that you don't know about, right?
Yeah.
So just having compassion, even if somebody, maybe puts you down or you feel, I don't know, like they hurt your feelings,
Mhm.
just know that we're all struggling with something.
Yeah. How can people become more kind to themselves?
Um, just knowing that we're not perfect, right? That we will fall short on many things, but it's okay because the next day we can get up and try again, right? So self-compassion is saying, it's not saying like I'm just gonna just let it go. I ate bad. Okay, I'm just gonna just give up. Self-compassion is saying, okay, maybe, I ate that whole cake yesterday, but you know what? It's fine. Like I'm gonna dust myself off and I'm gonna start over the next day, clean slate.
Yeah. I want to talk, if it's okay, about the spiritual aspect of it because I don't think it's talked about enough. I think we kind of chop these things up and we talk about, hey, you want to get in great shape, then you have to eat better and you have to exercise. My philosophy has always been, and what I talk a lot about with the evolve method that I use is that you start by evolving your body. You
Hmm.
start to move, you eat a little bit better. And what happens is then you get stuck. You reach some sticking points, some plateaus. And more often than not, they're mental.
Hmm.
So you go from evolving your body to now you have to evolve your mind. You have to start to think different.
Right.
The thinking different will lead to better habits, but it'll lead to something that's different. Once you've evolved your body, then you evolve your mind. But at a certain point, you reach another sticking point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not a matter of how do I change how I think, but it's what's deep inside of my soul.
Yeah.
And so you're evolving your body to evolve your mind to evolve your soul because certain things are either deeper soul challenges, deeper soul wounds, or just the fact that we simply have not gotten to the point where we have made a connection at a deep spiritual level to come into our highest self.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, then we will continue to cycle back and forth on this old pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always believed that the spiritual has a significant impact on our overall health and wellness.
Oh, yes.
How does that play into your life?
It's important to me because I feel like, um, and like again, like I'm a, I believe in God, and that's important to me because I have that standard, right? Like I feel like I have a standard that I live by to, and then also to want to grow as a person, to be a better person, to be
Yeah.
kinder, to be a good friend, to be a good mom, to be because I fall short a lot. Like I'm not perfect, and there's so many days where I fall short. Like I'm yelling at my kids. I'm not like the best mom, but just having that standard. I mean, even in fitness and in health, like just having that standard with myself because I have this body. This is my only body in my life, right? So I need to love my body. I need to take care of my body.
Yeah. Question for you. Somebody says your body's a temple. What does that mean to you?
That it's beautiful. Everybody has a body and it can move, it can do things. Like you can go snowboarding or um you can do different activities. Like you can be with your family. Like we're in this body. And because it's a temple, if you love it, you're going to want to take care of it.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of a temple, I think of probably the most beautiful edifice that could be
Hmm.
created, right? Temples, cathedrals, places of worship. It's the place where people go
Hmm.
to to get internal,
Hmm.
to connect with a higher source, to connect with a deeper portion of themselves. I've never walked into a temple that I looked at and said, "Well, that's an ugly building,"
Right.
right? I've never stood outside of one and said the same thing. And there's a lot of care in crafting a temple. The way that temples are made, the way that they're decorated, the way that there's a reverence to them when you go into a spiritual place. It's very intentional.
Hmm.
How does that relate to the body?
I mean, just all the things that you said, like it's a beautiful thing. And when you learn about the human body, like how it heals itself and like, all you need to do is take care of it. Like it will do the rest. Like it's pretty awesome. Like what it does every day. Like your brain is constantly working. I mean, even, obviously us thinking, but it's like, controlling our gut and our heart,
Mm.
all the autonomic stuff. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, and it is a beautiful thing.
It's almost like a miracle happening every
Yes.
single day, right?
Right.
What are some things that you do to lean into healthy spiritual practice that you feel like makes you a more healthy and fit person overall?
So I mentioned that every morning, and this is part of my habit stacking, is getting coffee with my husband. And, we'll do a quiet time where we'll pray together or we'll meditate together. And that's helps me with my mind, throughout the day. And, obviously that ties into the exercise,
Mhm.
and taking care of my temple and loving my body, feeding it and nourishing it with good foods and with exercise. And then, that leads into being a better mom and a better wife and better friend or a good friend.
Yeah. So it's a matter of not just doing some of the internal work, but it's then how does that come into play in the actions that you have towards other people?
Hmm.
What what's something right now that you're most proud of?
Um, just in general,
Yeah.
my family, my family. I love my family.
And
Um,
why?
just, we're not perfect, there's some dysfunctionality, but I love them so much. And, I love seeing my daughters grow, you know, every day. And, my little one, like I said, she struggles with ADHD, but I feel like ADHD is a superpower. And I just see
Yeah,
her
definitely
mind.
can be.
Yeah, her mind works. Like she's so smart. Maybe academically she struggles, but she gets what she wants, and she knows she's really crafty. And I kind of laugh like when I see her. She's kind of like an entrepreneur, like if, because like I try to do like the reward system with her, but then she comes home and she's like, "Oh, I sold all these Pokemon cards." And I'm like, "What? How? Like how?" And then she's got her own, cash that she wants to spend. And I'm like, "Okay, how is this ever going to work, this reward system, when you're always coming home with money or
Yeah.
whatever?" But I feel like that's like her ADHD. She's
I,
really
my
crafty.
son's the same way. One day we woke up and he turned 18,
Hmm.
and a day later he had a storage unit. It bought a trailer, and he was buying and selling couches.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I've got like every week or so we've got new couches that'll bring home to clean up in the garage and then take them back to his storage unit.
Uh,
And then if I don't know where he is, I'll give him a call and like, "Hey man, where you at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm delivering a couch. I'm picking up a couch.
I love it.
How'd you
So
do? What
smart.
was your margin?"
Uh-huh.
And it's fun, but that's where that's where the ADHD becomes that superpower.
Yeah.
What else what are you proud of about yourself?
About myself. Um, I think the efforts that I try to make in life, the intentionality, I'm proud of that. Just um trying,
Hmm.
trying hard at whatever I do and just putting my all into it.
Um, what are some of the philosophical battles that you wrestle with on your personal path of evolution?
Um, Philosophical? You mean like, are we going deep? Like with the, or just,
However you want to take it,
oh, okay.
go as deep as you want.
Philosophical. I don't know. That's a kind of a hard question to answer. Um, you mean like in religion or?
No, it could be just be like as you're growing as a human being, what do you run up against where you're like, oh, I don't know about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like yes, like I've made fitness my life, but there's things that like, habits that I've made, bad habits, right, that are hard to break. And that's why I kind of like, I'm, again, that makes me relatable now
Yeah.
because, there's habits that I'd like to change that are hard. They're kind of ingrained in me.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, that's one that's pretty tough, is like trying to overcome that. And, I'm trying systems, I'm trying to do all of that, those things.
Yeah. I think for me, it was one of the biggest philosophical battles I've had to fight is I always want to be like a loving, caring, compassionate, empathic person, right? But what I found over the years is I didn't necessarily give myself that same
Yeah.
treatment, and I had to learn, and I guess in all honesty, I'm still learning how to be more caring, compassionate, and empathic to myself. The biggest philosophical battle is that if I put myself first, I'm actually better at serving other people.
Yeah.
And for decades, I thought it was the opposite. Throw yourself into service of others, take care of others first, and you're going to grow along the way. And I found that if I invest in myself more, then I actually have more to give.
Yeah.
And so the concept of loving yourself first and then allows you to love others with greater depth.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the biggest philosophical battles that I've had to face and have had to, work to overcome. Not not perfect at it, but it's something that I feel like if I look back 10 years ago, I made some significant strides.
Yeah. No, you know what? I've actually, and I love that because I think it's the same with me.
Mm.
I think that's one thing that I've had to battle is that self-love.
Yeah. Yeah. From your perspective, how can people do a better job at showing self-love?
I mean, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. I don't know if you've read, there's a book that I read, You're Not Your Brain.
No,
Have you read that?
but I love the title.
Yeah, it's written by a neurologist, and there's science that you can grow, different dendrites. Like you can create new pathways. And basically, what he was saying, can't remember if it was the mind or the brain, but one of them is was developed over like just habits of like, self sabotage or having low self esteem and putting yourself down.
Mm.
And you just kind of do that day after day after day. It becomes now you're always doing it, right? So I can't remember if it was the mind or the brain. I think it was the brain. And then the mind is like where you can change that. You
So you
can
can kind of reprogram it.
reprogram it. But in the book, he was talking about sometimes you have to fake it till you make it
Mm.
type of deal. Like look in the mirror, even though you don't feel it. Like I don't like if you don't feel like you love yourself, just tell yourself you love yourself. Like you're a good person. I love you. Even if you don't feel it. But
Well,
just
there's a lot of power to that, right?
mhm.
I've actually talked about that a lot when I go lecture to corporations, where I'll talk about this concept of just we talk about fake it till you make it. The way I look at it is you're actually making it
Yeah.
because there's always two creations, right? Whenever you create something, like the house and the studio that we're sitting in, this was created first in someone's mind.
Yeah.
Then they wrote it down on a piece of paper and said, this is how we're going to build it. And then it was created in the physical world. So I think there's always two creations. There's the ethereal or spiritual creation, then there's the physical creation. And so I think that when we create something in the ethereal, when we look at ourselves and we say, wow, I'm great at this, we are creating it. We're not necessarily faking it. We're actually making it. We're making something happen.
Yeah.
Now, it might be low level, right? We may not totally feel like we're awesome,
Mhm.
that that's the coolest thing in the world, or that we're beautiful or wonderful or whatever it is. But we are turning the knob
Yeah.
and we are actually making it.
Mhm.
What's your thought?
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. I want to shift gears just for a second. I'm curious. How often do you eat kimchi?
Oh, pretty much every day.
When I pulled up doing some prep for the interview
Uh-huh.
and I'm going through some photos, this I because I like to prep and make sure that I know as much as I can about my guests as
Uh-huh.
possible. I couldn't count the number of pictures of kimchi.
Well, I'm Korean. Like I love kimchi.
But you love kimchi.
Oh, I love it so much.
Why
Yeah.
is it such an important part of your diet?
I mean, I love the way it tastes, and I grew up on it, but it's obviously proven that there's so many probiotics and
Yeah.
it's also there's a lot of vitamin C, so it helps with colds. Actually, I think there was a study done in Korea. I can't remember if it was like the surrounding countries where they were getting colds and then Koreans were not getting colds and they
Mm.
were like wondering why. And they found
Oh,
that it was
pots of kimchi that they're
kimchi.
burying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. There's a lot of research that's come out that says that there's probably like 70 to 80% of our overall immune system comes from the gut
Yes.
and the interaction that the gut has and the microbiota that it has
Mhm.
with the other organs. And so you've written before that fermented foods and getting the microbiota build up from whole foods versus taking a pill
Yeah.
is more impactful.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Because when you take it in a pill, I feel like it's not. I mean, some of it might be alive. Like if you're, and obviously, if you buy a probiotic, you should probably freeze it or put it in the refrigerator just to keep it alive. When it's coming from food, like it's alive,
Yeah, it's
right?
grown.
Yeah. So I feel like it's more impactful to get it from food versus, and again, like I think technology has changed, and I think that post is kind of old, but I think there's obviously some good probiotics now out in the market. But yeah, I mean, you're getting it from food. Like you're getting the good live probiotics.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you talk about like the power that you can get from food. I actually listened to a researcher yesterday. And his lab is doing some really interesting studies that show that when you get certain things from supplements, so let's say
Mhm.
you're taking a supplement to get your vitamins and minerals, or maybe you're taking a probiotic supplement, that the concentration of it goes into your body and it almost overwhelms your liver. And
Yeah.
then your liver, the connection between the gut, small intestine, and the liver, it's there's a lot of difficulty there. In fact, I found with some clients when were taking too many supplements,
Yes.
it just overloaded their system.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I had several clients that thought that they had IBS. As soon
Mhm.
as we cut their supplements out, that cleared up.
Huh.
No more issues there. So I'm with you on the fact that if you can get the whole foods and you can get the probiotics from
Mhm.
something that's more natural, you're probably going to have better results.
Oh yeah.
Do you make
Definitely.
your own?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I haven't because I found a good kimchi at Seoul Market
Okay.
here in Murray.
Okay.
But before then, yes, I would make my own.
It's at so much. I need to,
Yeah, go get it. It's really good. So they
you
have,
have to send me a picture of it.
yeah, they actually make their own kimchi there. That's delicious.
So my
And
brother lived in Korea for a period of time, and he talked about going out to the back of the house with
mhm,
the people that he knew, and they would just take the pots, fill it up, bury it under the ground,
yep.
leave it there. I don't know how long you leave it,
Uh-huh.
like a few weeks, from what I understand,
Probably.
and then they would unbury it, and there's your
Mhm.
kimchi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think like in the ground, it stays a certain temperature
right.
constant. And so like it ferments better.
Yeah, yeah. That was my
So the
understanding
flavor
too.
is better. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I gotta figure out what the kimchi recipe is from you. What's something else about nutrition that you know that you wish other people knew?
Um, I feel like a lot of people do extremes like with the dieting, right? So I mean, I'm not against, and I try to tell people, and if somebody wants to try something, let's try it. But I'm a big believer in sustainability,
Yeah.
right? Being able to do it for a lifetime. And
I
when
think,
people,
like we said, neither one or you nor I could sit on this like broccoli chicken
right.
rice diet for
Yeah. I
Christ.
mean, it's healthy, right? But
Yeah.
it's not, doesn't give you a lot of variety
No,
and it's hard to sustain that,
it's
right?
not sustainable.
Yeah. So I think, um, I mean, at the end of the day, like what's scientifically proven is energy in, energy out. Like if you're focusing on weight loss, obviously there's other things that could be in play,
Right.
but if you're just focusing on energy in, energy out, people do extreme diets, but when you really look at the brunt of it, like it seems like the pattern is there's more vegetables in the diet
Mm-hmm.
and it's the energy, energy out. So I mean, you can do like a whole food clean. You can eat your carbohydrates, your proteins. Like you're not eliminating any food, or unless you obviously are allergic to it or you're sensitive to it,
Right.
but not restricting yourself, because that sets you up for success versus getting on an extreme diet.
Is there any? Do you have any restrictions in your own personal diet?
To be honest, I don't. No, I mean, I don't have any allergies or sensitivities. So I eat bread. I eat,
Mm.
you know, I'll list the evil foods. Like I'll eat bread. I eat Nutella.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
eat cereal.
The evil foods.
I'll have a piece of cake. I'll have a cookie because I feel like it's not just about, obviously that's, a cookie is low nutrient dense. It's
Right.
high calorically dense, but it keeps me sane and it helps me with my relationship with food. It's okay to incorporate that every once in a while.
Yeah, it's so weird what the relationship that has been permeating through society, especially over the last probably 10, 15 years about
Mhm.
food. We have such um, a dysfunctional relationship with food. And I
Yeah,
think part of the problem is the fitness industry because the fitness industry constantly tells people what's healthy and what's not.
right.
It's not healthy to cut out all the foods that you love.
Yeah,
It's not healthy to get rid of the cake. It's not healthy to get rid of the cookies. It's not healthy to get rid of as you said, hey, I'm Korean, so I eat kimchi, right?
right.
Well, what if kimchi wasn't the healthiest thing? Would you cut it out? I mean,
No,
I,
because I
I got
wouldn't.
I got friends that are Italian. They say I can't not eat pasta. Well,
Right.
should we cut it out? No, you shouldn't. Like
Hmm.
that. That's part of food is so much more than just some person's dogmatic reasoning
Yeah,
that one set of foods is healthier than another.
right.
Food has a cultural aspect to it,
Oh yeah,
right?
and it all plays a role too. So when you're so restrictive, what is not healthy is when you start craving something so bad that you go and you binge on it.
Right.
That's
Right.
unhealthy.
Because you want the thing that you think you can't have, right? I've only personally got one restrictive rule, and that's that I don't eat foods that make me feel like garbage.
Right.
Like, so I can't eat soy or soy derivatives
Yeah.
because I'm allergic to them.
Yeah.
And there's a few other foods I'm not quite sure what it is about them that I just
Mhm.
don't feel great when
Yeah.
I eat them. And so that's my only restriction is I don't eat those things.
Hmm.
And then everything else I eat if I
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah. And
I
I
don't
think
always
that's
want the
great.
donut.
Yeah.
I don't always want the cake.
Hmm.
Sometimes I do.
Hmm.
But food is it's culture, it's connection, right?
Yeah, it is connection and it bonds us too.
Yeah. I mean, think about the time that you and your husband have together
Hmm.
over coffee, right?
Hmm.
A bean.
Hmm.
But what a powerful connection that is. I
Right.
mean, your eyes shift when you're
Hmm.
talking about that.
Hmm.
Even when I bring it up, you get this smile on your face. You can't hide it because it creates this connection,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
What's something else that you see perpetuated in the fitness industry relative to food that you wish would just go away?
I mean, obviously the fad dieting. Um, I feel like the all or nothing, like that all, obviously ties into that, like the fad dieting, the all or nothing attitude. Um, yeah, I mean, I just see so many women with unhealthy relationships with food and their bodies.
Mm.
Um, that I don't know if there's some studies that that show that when you um are so restrictive that way, like where you're putting your body down, or like you're like, I can't eat that. I'm so fat, like or women that say like, I'm so fat, like look at my fat rolls or whatever.
Mhm.
It's actually counterproductive to hitting your goals. Like you might not lose that weight because it's causing all this stress and cortisol release in your body to think about, you know, your body not being beautiful.
Yeah. And back to the basic scientific principles you talked about before. Yes, calories in versus calories, but it's so much more complex, right? And
Hmm.
you just referenced cortisol. When we spike cortisol on a regular basis,
Hmm.
there's some other friends that show up to the party, right?
Oh yeah.
Glucagon, insulin,
Yep.
like we feel like we need these little dopaminergic hits by getting more sugar to make ourselves feel better because we've spiked our cortisol. Maybe we are beating ourselves up so much that we're even tapping into the catecholamines and
Hmm.
epinephrine and norepinephrine because we're constantly, oh, I can't eat that, and so
Hmm.
we get super uptight about
Yeah.
it. That hormonal balance is critical to somebody's weight loss.
Yes. Oh,
And
definitely.
we can't ignore that.
Yes, definitely. Because chronic cortisol release, chronic stress, it just, ties into IBS. It ties into
Right.
so many different things, digestive issues.
Yeah,
It actually is counterproductive. You end up storing fat around your midline.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been shown. And you're more likely to have a fatty liver too.
Yeah.
I sat with a gastroenterologist one day and we went deep on a lot of health topics. And she said, I had complimented her. I said, your bedside manner is one of the best of any doctor that I've ever met. And she said, thank you. I found that probably more than 9 out of 10 people that come into my office that their problems were psychological related.
Mhm.
She says that doesn't mean it's in their head, that
Right.
they don't have digestive issues, that they don't have, IBS or whatever it is that they are dealing with. She said, but it's stress related.
Hmm.
And so the psychosocial emotional piece has such a powerful impact into
Hmm.
how it affects the gut.
Yeah.
She goes, so I had to work on getting people very calm and very comfortable to
Mhm.
talk to me because that was the medicine. Anything else I prescribed was just almost placebo
Huh.
in effect. And I thought, what a fascinating way of looking at it.
Hmm.
Here's uh, um, a doctor that I can't even remember if she'd been 30 or 40 years in the business by the time we met in business, in a totally separate business. But I was blown away by that observation.
Hmm.
How does your mood affect what you want to eat?
I mean, you nailed a lot of like the physiological responses when you're stressed, right? Like you start releasing all these other hormones, right?
Yeah.
And your parasympathetic. So you're like your autonomic system is constantly on overdrive, right? So your parasympathetic system might not be balancing out. So, I mean, yeah, like at least for me, like when I'm stressed, I start craving sugar,
Mm.
which sounds like that.
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
physiological
sure.
response. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. What do you do? I'm curious. So, as we're on the topic of stress, what do you do when you start to feel a sense of being maybe overly stressed? What are some tactics that you do to bring it down so that you don't reach towards things that might be less health promoting?
I mean, one of the most effective tools in my toolbox is just going for a walk.
Mm.
Yeah,
Why is that?
I think that just really helps, like connecting with nature. I mean, like I live right next to a trail, so I just go on a walk and I just breathe deep, and I just feel like very connected, and it really helps me with my stress. That or just getting out of the house and doing something that I enjoy.
Like,
Um, I mean, obviously hiking, but it's winter, so I'm not doing as much
sure.
hiking. Um, or just going to the store or like shopping or finding you know uh fun foods or
Yeah. Yeah. Getting out, doing something, change of location.
yeah, change of location, um working out. But I mean, the walking, I feel like I do that a lot.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful how walking can change things.
Yeah.
I read something at one point, I can't remember who it was, that talked about that walking, we have the fight, flight, or freeze, right? And walking is actually a flight mechanism, but because it's so mild,
Yeah.
it actually helps us to tap into that parasympathetic portion of the nervous system and then calms us down. So while it is a flight, it's the best flight we can do because
Yeah.
it gives us time to calm down, connect
Uh,
with nature. There's a lot of research talking about how nature helps to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system and help us calm down. Extremely powerful stuff. Michelle, we're coming up on our time, but one final question for you. As you have evolved as a person over the years, what is something that you used to believe that you no longer do?
um I fell into the fad, like before getting into health and fitness and all of that. Before all of that, I was one of those girls that hated their bodies.
Hmm.
Always felt like I wasn't, had body dysmorphia, even though the average person would be like, "Oh, you look good."
Right.
I just felt like I didn't, and I had that low self-esteem. So I kind of fell into that trap of, and I even had like orthorexia, like where there was foods that I wouldn't eat
Yeah.
because I felt like it would make me fat. So like I feel like I can relate to women like that, when I train them, like when they feel that way or they have that low self-esteem or those insecurities. Like I'm like, well, I've had that before too.
Yeah.
But now I feel, you know, um, like I have a very healthy relationship with my body, a healthy relationship with food. I love my body, right? And I feel like that really motivates me to want to take care of it.
Yeah, what a beautiful way to put it. And again, I think it's a relatable thing, but I think it's also inspiring because there are a lot of people that live in that space.
Mhm.
And I think it's inspiring and hopeful and helpful for people to hear that you don't just arrive there.
Yeah.
It takes work, it takes effort, and we've all been there in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
Well, Michelle, for our listeners who want to learn more about you, hear more about how could they hire you as a coach? What are all the cool things that you're doing? How can they keep up with you? Where do you want them to go?
You can visit my website at www.mb-elite.com, or you can visit my Facebook page. My username is MB_elite. I think it's MB_elite_fitness and nutrition.
Great. And we'll link those in the show notes. But Michelle, thanks once again for coming on. What a great conversation. I really appreciate talking to you, hearing more about what you're doing, your path, your progress, your journey, but then just getting to spend some time learning from you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot from you too today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your personal evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session to keep you moving forward on your path of personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get great guests and provide you with the best wisdom for your daily life. Until next time, keep evolving.